Hello everyone, welcome to this message. So I've pulled some fairy oracle cards for today's message and also some of these cards. So these are like Chinese cards in combination with a tarot deck, but it has quite different imagery than the usual Rider-Waite. So let's just start there, right? So this talks about, together with this card deck that I made myself, it says rarity. So there's something here about this balance, right? This temperance, this balance. It is a very rare balance to achieve, right? It is very, very rare that someone achieves this kind of balance, this kind of peace, maybe. Because that's pretty much what this talks about, right? The balance of peace. Maybe also like an angelic peace, an angelic balance. And then we have this six of bamboo to go with that. So this talks about that, about you helping your environment, right? So it has to do with you caring for other people, you caring for your environment, being of service to your environment, assisting your environment, potentially with skilled labor. So it could be that as you are taking care of your environment. So this could be this is like some people hinder their environment and some people help their environment, right? And it seems like you are nurturing, very much nurturing for everyone you meet, right? For your environment. So this could be your family, this could be your work environment, this could be your clients, right? And it's like you are very, very nurturing. You provide a lot of nurturing towards your environment. You help them by nurturing them, by caring for them. You are of great assistance and service to those around you, and you are very skilled in whatever you are doing, right? And there is something about, there is an element of angelic peace or angelic balance that is very, very rare. And it could even be, because it can talk about like compromises, right? So it could be that you have achieved a very, very rare balance in lifestyle as well, which is very, very rare to come by. So that's what this is talking about. So maybe you have an impeccable work-life balance or an impeccable balance over many different life areas. And then we have Geo the Slow. And Geo the Slow is looking at this empty page. So we have the fairy guide as our next card. The fairy guide is reversed. So the fairy guide you could see is like an empty slate. As an empty slate. So when he is looking at the future, right? He, of course, like, I'm just going to go with Geo the Slow first, right? So Geo the Slow is someone who observes their environment, right? Who's very peaceful. You can definitely see it in combination with this. This is a very nurturing, caring, maybe someone who has achieved a very rare balance in life, a very rare peace, almost like an angelic peace, right? Or even an angelic peace. Someone who has achieved some kind of balance, which is very, very rare to achieve, right? And this makes you an observer, right? So you are observing, you are a very peaceful presence, you could just say. I would like to see Geo the Slow more like an incredibly peaceful presence, someone who is very unjudgmental, someone who's very peaceful, and who's like almost like not even there, right? Because like Geo the Slow is a little bit of an outsider to society in the sense that he is so peaceful, so calm, has achieved such a rare energy, a rare balance, and as a result of that, he is not really part of the society in a sense, because he is like that peaceful, nurturing, caring presence that is around you, that takes care of people, that nurtures people, that is of service to people, potentially is very skilled at what they do and at work, right, in their business, but like and is very, very helpful towards other people, right? So this is someone who is hardly noticeable, very peaceful, but also hardly noticeable, and very incredibly rare. And you also can see there's like a Buddha kind of energy coming off of this Geo the Slow, right? Very, very peaceful, very, very. It has to do with this rare balance that you have achieved, right? And then we have this fairy guide. So fairy guide, usually this card talks about that this is like an empty slate, but I think it has to do with you being an empty slate potentially. And also because normally the fairy guide is like this idea about like that you can just write down whatever you want on a piece of paper, right? It's like with a pen, like you write down whatever you would like to experience. So this person, he is not really he doesn't really have, like if he would look at a page, he would not even know what to write on that page, right? So he has no desires, he has he's not looking towards the future. He is incredibly in the present moment, right? Which you can also see with fairies of the future, in the sense that fairies of the future has turned her back. I feel very much like she looks back, right, with her back turned on this empty slate. So, and I think it has to do with this empty slate here, that it has to do with this person being like an empty slate, right? So someone who is without ego, who is literally an empty slate, an empty canvas, and also who is not envisioning the future. So someone who's incredibly in the present moment, very much like just open to whatever comes his way, right? So this kind of an energy, which is incredibly rare to come across, right? So a being that doesn't have an ego is very, very rare to see, and someone who's completely immersed in the present moment is also very, very rare to come by, right? And so that is what I'm seeing with that. And the fairies of the future, which is normally like this card of like the fairies, like or divine intervention. It can be a card of divine intervention just before a disaster happens, or it could be like someone who is like considering which road should I take, which decision should I make, and like the fairies like saying like you don't, or like the divine saying like don't even contemplate this, I'm going to get you out of this situation. So it could be that a divine intervention took place or is about to take place, because it looks like the future, right? So it could be that there is a divine intervention that is about to take place. And this card usually talks about like someone being put on another timeline, right? So it could be that you are going to be transported into another timeline. So you may maybe it also has to do with this rare balance that you have achieved, right? This rare energy that you have achieved, this angelic kind of peaceful energy. And as a result of that, you may be transported into a new timeline, into a completely different life experience, which could be, and it's almost like a decision that is made for you, right? Because this is pretty much what this card is talking about, like the divine making a decision for you. And it could be that your energy in and of itself has made a decision for you to be transported into a new timeline. So it could be that your energy is just, the cause of your energy just creates an empty slate, just to create a new timeline, you being transported into a new timeline and experiencing a completely different reality as a result of that. So you're like a little bit like an outsider, right? You're not on the same frequency as everyone else. So it could be that you are on such a rarefied frequency that you're just on a different timeline than everyone else that you are meeting, pretty much, because that's what these three cards could talk about, right? And then we have the himself card. So I think this has again to do with that egoless state, because himself normally talks about like someone who is trying to either like hold on to something, or like very much like this is who I am and I'm staying put, like this is who I am and defending that stance. But this is reversed. So this talks about that this is like again this idea about the egoless state, right? And this especially with due to slow above that, like this person is in a very, very egoless state, but could be in a divine alignment, right? Because these three stars makes me think about divine alignment. So you could be very much in divine alignment, like, yeah. Due to slow in this, whatever this means, right? Due to slow is an incredibly divine alignment. Also because he is in an egoless state and is in this rarefied kind of energy, right? So he is not, you could say like he is not himself because he is in an egoless state, right? So this is more like the energy of an ascended master, an enlightened being, right? Like someone who has an incredibly rare energy, as I already said, a very rare, peaceful energy that is incredibly balanced. Also, his life is incredibly balanced. You can see he has a very rarefied kind of energy, which is also incredibly nurturing to other people, incredibly beneficial to other people. So, and he is not himself, right? So, and it could also even be, because this card can talk about communication, that it could be that you are communicating also in this kind of frequency, in this rarefied frequency. So let's see, and then we have she of the Kruak, which is my card of masks coming off. So you're not looking through any masks. Maybe that's also what is so rare about this, because this is like someone, usually you this talks about like potentially being outside the matrix, or being someone, it has to do like you not looking through an ego lens pretty much. So you're not looking through the eyes of an ego lens of a self. You're not looking through the eyes of a self. You're not, because you're coming from an egoless state, right? So this is incredibly rare to come by. And there's even something very cosmic about this, I think, because normally this has to do with still like being guided, right? And this was what I was picking up on before, like this idea about that you're not guided by anything, which may also relate to this independence that I'm getting here. You are not guided by anything. You're independent from seemingly the entire energetic world. So it's like you are not connected to anything, potentially, like not connected to spirit guides or anything, because the fairy guide talks about like being guided by something, right? But I think this is an empty state. You are not being guided by anything. And because you're not being guided by anything, this makes it even more rare, I guess, right? Because you can also see it like this, like this concept of that you're egoless. You're not looking through an ego lens, but also I don't think you're even looking from any kind of guidance. So this is like someone who is an ego is sorry. Yeah, so you are not really guided by anything, really. Not by you're not being guided by any kind of guidance, pretty much. You're not just in an egoless state. So usually you can like have an enlightened being who is like channeling something, but this is like an enlightened being that isn't channeling anything. This is just an egoless state, and an egoless state beyond self, but it has of a kind of like an ascended master enlightened being kind of frequency, but you are not channeling anything. You're not connected to anything, which is really really special, I think. And then we have the singer of the chalice. Singer of the chalice, and this has a little bit of a same vibe to it, because she of the Kruak is said to be a very motherly energy, right? But this is like, if it is reversed, maybe it could talk about that this is not really a motherly energy. This is a fatherly energy. A fatherly energy. So, which is kind of peculiar, because you are very nurturing, right? So these cards, they talked about that you are very nurturing, you are very caring, you are of service to people, of assistance to people, but your energy is not really a motherly energy. Your energy is much more of a fatherly kind of energy, which is maybe also even more rarefied, because it's not just that you're like an enlightened being, someone who is in an egoless state, but is an enlightened being or an ascended master or something of that sort, but who is not connected to anything, who is not channeling anything. So, and is very nurturing, caring, but incredibly balanced, incredibly peaceful, but at the same time is not in a motherly energy, is in a fatherly energy. a fatherly energy that is also like you're like an empty slate inside. So an empty slate inside means an empty of no soul stirrings, no thoughts in your mind, no feelings in your body, like incredibly like an empty inside, right? But empty in a very fatherly kind of energy and an ego state at the same time. And then we have fairies of the future, right? And we have the singer of the child that comes underneath. The singer of the child is incredibly, it should be a very fatherly energy because it is this cup, like you could see it as the Holy Grail, you could see it as like the Ace of Cups in tarot, right? So, and cups are also very, very emotional. And to me, this talks about pouring into, like the Ace of Cups to me is a card of abundance, but it could also be a card of like investing in yourself. So you are potentially investing in yourself. This is like a card of like spending money on yourself, doing self-care. So it could be that you're in a state of where you are doing a lot of self-care, where you are maybe investing in yourself in terms of like buying yourself some things, or like investing in learning, growing, which would also be related to the card underneath, which also has to do with studying and learning. So it could be that you are investing in terms of your of learning something new, of educating yourself, of personal growth. But I think moral personal growth is very likely in terms of like higher learning, and also pouring into yourself in terms of like self-care. So also, if you would look at it from like the card, like you could see it as like a very divine energy being poured into your body. There's like some people also call this grace, right? So it could be that grace is flowing through your body, a very divine kind of energy. But what I see it more than anything is like potentially, because this card is so connected to me with nurturing self, right? Like nurturing yourself, doing self-care, potentially investing yourself in terms of like buying yourself something that you may need to achieve your dreams, or to for your soul, something like that, right? And investing in higher in learning new skills, reading books, maybe these kinds of things. So maybe you are doing that as well. And like what has this got to do with fairies of the future, this new timeline? Maybe this has something to do with you being transported into a new timeline. You're definitely guiding yourself. This is usually like a card that says like you should go in this direction, right? Like this gnome here always seems to be like someone who says like you should go in this direction, while this person has some reservations about that. She looks like she has some reservations concerning what this advice is. And so this could be like you being transported out of that. So you are not being advised by anyone. And like if you are being advised, you seem to be advised by self-care, by the books you read, by how you are, maybe you are going into higher learning, or like studying things, and like you are growing because of that. So and not and from self-care as well, from just being peaceful and doing self-care, and you're learning from that state, and not so much from the influence of the world, you could say, right? And then we have at the bottom of the deck, we get Loathas the Wild. But let's just go, before we go there, let's go to the cards. So we have this here, Independence. We have Independence, and then we have the High Priestess. So again, this is, you are an independent High Priestess or High Priest, right? So you are, just like I was already picking up on, you are not connected to anything. Like you are an independent high priest, right? So this is someone who is intuitive, who is connected to the higher realms, but is connected in a way that you could say like this person is connected to source, to the divine, right? Because if you see this as a Kabbalistic tree of life, right, this all goes back to source, right? So you are connected to source, you are connected to the divine, in a way where you are completely independent. So you are not receiving your guidance from spirit guides or angels maybe, or certain beings or whatever it may be, like ascended masters even. Like you're not receiving your guidance from anywhere. Like you're receiving your guidance straight from source, straight from the divine, right? So you are an independent high priestess. So also this could talk about like wisdom, like you have an independent wisdom, you have an independent inner wisdom maybe as well. So maybe like your inner knowing could be very independent from this world, from worldly influences, but also from spiritual influences. You are independent from that. So your inner wisdom doesn't, like your inner knowing is uninfluenced by the world, is uninfluenced by the spirit world as well. And you are completely independent pretty much. Also in terms of wisdom, this is an independent wisdom, just like I said here, right? Like you are uninfluenced by the guidance, the advice of the world, and you are much more guided by things like self-care, books, learning, higher learning, these kinds of things, right? So let's see, as you are in this new timeline that you transport yourself into pretty much by just being in this energetic state, right? This rarefied energetic state. And then we have the 7 of bamboo here. So this talks about like that you are learning, that you are gaining knowledge, that you are studying potentially. Maybe you're studying very hard. Maybe you are improving yourself through some kind of dedicated practice. You may be also improving yourself through experience that you are gaining over time. And there is a sense of perfection here. So there is something here about like this, about a kind of perfection, a little bit like that rarefied energetic stance, that rarefied energetic balance that you have achieved. And as a result of that, like you are very helpful in terms of like what you are learning is very helpful to other people. Also the knowledge that you are gaining during this time, whatever you are studying, however you are improving yourself through some kind of dedicated practice or by some kind of experience that you are gaining over time, you are achieving some kind of perfection here. So there is something here about potentially like a perfect alignment, right? Like a perfect, like there is a perfection in terms of maybe purity, right? Like there is an incredible purity in your connection. Like you have, like you would say, like a perfection in connection, right? There's something, whatever you are learning, whatever you are, there is something very valuable about what you are learning, because it is very independent and it's very pure and it's coming from a very pure source, because you're on this rarefied frequency, you could say. What has that to do with Luatha is the wild? Luatha is the wild, and this can also talk about wisdom and patience as well, with these cards together. Maybe you are also very independent in terms of your patience. Maybe you have your own timing. Maybe you are like incredibly patient in a sense, like an incredibly peaceful tempo, not really expecting anything, not really having expectations towards the future, being very much in the present moment, just like Gio the Slow, right? And there could also be an incredible wisdom as a result of that as well, from being in this particular state. And then we have Luatha the Wild, which is very peculiar, because Luatha the Wild is like the green light from the universe, is incredibly fast speed, things picking up, things going really fast. So it's kind of peculiar, right? Maybe it has something to do with this rarefied energy. It may cause something to go really fast. Also, this card can talk about witchcraft to me, because like there's a witch here in the background. So it could have, there could be something about that as well, but let's just see. So, but definitely there's something here. Also like this green comes together here as well with the star. Maybe you are shining very bright and it's, the universe is giving a green light. Maybe there's something about that you're shining really bright, and it is like a green light for the universe to say, let's let things speed up, let things come fast. So maybe you're going to see although you are living in an incredibly slow pace, it could be that this is exactly why things are moving so fast, right? So there could be very fast developments in your life, things moving very fast, because it's like green light, right? It even looks like a green light. The green light is being given by the universe for something, so to go and happen, I guess. So I'm wishing you a very beautiful day ahead, and bye bye.